meaningful to talk about? Oh, I have something for Eitan Van. I have a whole, I have better thing to say, a short answer about the trolley question. But I'll wait for Eitan, and maybe something to remind me. I don't. He may not be here Sunday either, but Monday. Okay. Fine. Anybody have a good question?
Yeah.
Hi, Dovi.
Actually,
yeah, Ezra.
Actually, I don't know if this counts, but I don't know if you can answer this. I mean, like definitively, but like we've been learning, in Toma we've been learning brachos this year, first and fourth parak, which is it's like not like a yeshivish.
Not at all. That's so interesting.
Right. But like
they're geschmack though, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like, and that's why they did it, because Zoom is like, like it's not as
Gonna break the rules anyway. Why not just do something creative?
Yeah, basically. When when is Man Kriya Shema and Tefillah? Like, how do we like?
When is Man Kiddush? What did you say?
When is Man Kriya Shema, basically? When is Man Kriya Shema, and when is Man Tefillah? Like, how like, is there like a general way that we paskin, or it's like total? Because I know there are gajillion opinions out there, right?
Yeah, gajillion opinions. That's right, and that's understanding it. I think if you want hi Levi, if you want a short pithy answer, like superficial and everything, then you have to say that the olam is maker like the gra.
Okay.
And I think that's the shortest, easiest answer.
Right, that is short.
The olam is maker, but there are people who try to make it in the morning, at least in time for Magen Abraham. Commendable, but not. So what about, if you don't make that, then the gra is fine and accepted.
So what about Mincha Marv though? What, like, I see that people.
The machlokis. I mean, we go either like Rabbi Yehuda or Chachamim. I hope this is not a private conversation between me and Ezra. These are familiar sugyas. They're very basic halacha about when plag mincha is and when the earliest you could daven mariv and the latest you could daven mincha. That whole sugya. Is that what you're asking, Ezra?
Yeah. Like I know, and like so yes.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yes.
So, I mean, in theory, I'll try to make it clear. Maybe people are less familiar with the sugya, but in theory, it's an unusual psak. The Gemara concludes that you could go either like Chachamim or like Rabbi Yehuda. But what's indicated in the poskim talk about this is that you should not mix and match, but a lot of people do. So, if you want to take in, let's say, Shabbos Kodesh early, hi Ben. If you want to take in Shabbos Kodesh early, fine. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. So that means you'll have davened your mincha in ample time before plag mincha, right? Which by most accounts, either you'll daven b'yachidus or you'll find a nice mincha gedola minyan, which a lot of the yeshivish communities have, and we had it at YU also. And if you don't, you want to take in mincha late, which is what a lot of people do. So then you shouldn't take in Shabbos early or daven mariv early either, because it's either here or there. Now tachlis, we see that the olam is mixes and matches and does what's convenient, and we daven mincha, we got mincha late and mariv early, which is like nobody. I mean, it's like the easiest, it's the cool of either side.
It's like is that the Trimos edition?
Yeah. Yeah. And even though most poskim don't agree with that, I think today in our desperation, given the pathetic nature of people's observance, we just do whatever we can. The local minyan, you're lucky if you can get the people to come in and have kavanas. So these are already halachic fine tunings that it's correct to be medayik in, but we see that the people are lenient around the world.
Yeah, that's just what I've noticed. That was like really what I was wondering. Because it's like, you're looking at these sugyas and it's like nobody says you can mix and match, right? Like, right. And meaning like on the same day.
There's so many examples of this. When you're learning halacha, especially when you go properly, you learn the sugya in the Gemara, you go through basic Rishonim, Achronim, look at the Tur, Beit Yosef. right? And go take it all down, and you think, okay, here's the halacha. I don't know if you remember. I mean, this is one of my stories that I tell. Somebody out there probably knows exactly what I'm going to say right now. Early on in my yeshiva experience, one of the rabbis would get up and say after Shachris, halacha yomis. And people would say, you'd say something over, and invariably somebody would say, hey, Rabbi, but when we go out and we see in shul, they're not really doing that. They're not really careful with that, Rabbi. And he would say, Rabbosai, it's a problem. So, okay, yeah, right. Okay, so we understand that not everybody is always, can't be perfectionists, and we're not always intellectually honest, fine. But that just kept happening. And after topic, it was Rabbosai, it's a problem. So in my chutzpah, fortunately, I had a little bit of a self-filter then, maybe less so today. But I wanted to raise my hand and ask Rabbi, isn't after a while Rabbosai, it's a problem? I mean, here or there, I gather, but you want to tell me that a huge chunk of, the dinim that we learn in halacha are just not practiced in the world? How do we accept that? What I found, though, is that there are some places that actually are pretty good. And actually, Rabbosai, it's not necessarily a problem. There's a range. I mean, I'll lay it out there. I'll just say it bluntly. There are problems in every society that calls itself Orthodox. Nothing's perfect. My experience in general is in the, whatever you want to call it, Haredi, Yeshivish world, there's more of an attention to these and other topics. And therefore, you tend to have a better law of averages. People are a little more careful. They're more knowledgeable. My stories of how I came to Tellstone, where I noticed that there was just a fine attention to these details. And a lot of the subtleties, okay, well, this is a community that's really trying, and they're learning, they know it, and they're putting it into practice, which I understand is our mission in this world. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, you start with it. I don't know if this is just me and Ezra prattling on here. If this is a topic of interest to anybody else, Dovi, you're out there somewhere. You're looking awfully spiffy in that suit.
Yeah.
a little bit frozen in time, but okay, fine. Yeah, but I think these are essential kinds of topics to talk about, like what's going on with halacha. Hi, Aviel.
Hi, Rabbi.
Why aren't people more careful observing halacha? I mean, isn't that what we have in this world? All we know of what Hashem wants for us is that we should keep the Torah, and the keeping of the Torah is to the halacha. So not to be machmir necessarily. I mean, if it's a well-placed chumrah, for sure. But not. The point is not to be machmir. It's just to try to do what Hashem tells us to do. I mean, isn't that what we're trying to practice here? But there's a lot of intellectual inconsistency and laziness. Okay, I will get off my soapbox now. Anybody else? Last question. Okay, you all be passive and quiet, and I'll just keep talking. Be that way. Okay, good. Here we go. Back to anybody for a little reincarnation. Okay, we were talking about this yesterday. I think anybody here that wasn't there yesterday? No, we're all these are a lot of the regulars. And in fact, I'm actually starting to get the timing down. A lot of you come at a consistent time too, so I finally keeping track of this. We are, if you could believe this, really winding down in Iyov. Just a few, I bleed netter. I hope Bezras Hashem will finish before Shavuos next week. And then we'll reconsider. I have a few ideas for further topics if anybody wants to resume and continue. I'm enjoying this, and I'm enjoying seeing you all, and only wish we had more personal time together. What we were talking about with Gilgul Neshamos, the big idea, right, and the concept, and it overlaps into so many other important discussions, is that we're all here to do something or some things. Each of us something unique and important in this world, in this go-round. Of course, the big question should be asked more than it is, well, how do I figure out how to do that? Well, I got to learn a lot of Torah, because that's the only way that Torah alone will shed light on all of our, not only our limitations, but also it'll cast a light on what we have the potential to do as well. And you have a better idea to try to figure out what you're put in this world to accomplish. And the idea of Gilgul Neshamos then reinforces this, that there's an idea that some people, a lot of people, don't live up to what they could and should do, and so they're given multiple chances to do so. That's a general review of a lot of what we said, but there's a lot more too. If you didn't hear this or you didn't remember this, you might want to go back and re-listen to last night's talk. This all gets heavily Kabbalistic. I'm skipping it. I'm skipping some of the discussion. There's a Gilgul, which is similar to a concept of Ibor, which is not quite the same as the Dibuk. The Dibuk is the also cinematic variation of some kind of an evil spirit that embodies a person. I don't really want to get into these topics. They're a little sensationalist, and one hears about them periodically. And there's reason to be skeptical if they're for real. They're the real thing, because we live in times, again, of sensationalism where people are looking for some kind of mystical moment. And at a Dibuk, it makes for such great press and popular attention. Usually, if these things are real and they're handled by a genuine Makubal, a Kabbalist, they're kept on the hush-hush. They're not meant to publicize or to glamorize. We have all kinds of traditions brought down, mostly by Kabbalistically oriented Sfarim, like the Or HaChaim, the great Or HaChaim HaKadosh, his Perush on the Chumash. He identifies Moshe Rabbeinu as a Gilgul of Hevel, Rabbi Akiva as a Gilgul of Cain. The founder really is considered the founder of Hungarian Hasidus in general, called the Yismach Moshe of Moshe Teitelbaum, an ancestor of many, including the Satmar Rebbe. Said that he was a Gilgul. Some of you are going to remember this. He was a Gilgul of one of the sheep in Yaakov Avinu's flock, and he proceeded to teach his Hasidim, not Corona, he proceeded to teach his Hasidim a song that Yaakov used to sing when he was out tending his flock. One more time.
I love how you say not Corona.
Oh, thank you. Somebody out there is listening. Okay, great. Yeah,
it's not like you're contagious over the video, but
yeah.
You never know. You never know, man. No one knows about this virus. It's a virtual
this
virus
thing. I don't know. I tell you. Okay, and transmitting words of Torah is infectious, so who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a wild notion that he was a sheep, but they sang a pretty song at least, and maybe through them we could actually tap into some authentic Jewish music, something that that these days you don't hear at all with the new stuff that comes out. Yeah, there's a lot of rich discussion on this. Hashem tells Moshe that Moshe may be a Gilgul of Noach. Whole arichus in this based on a medrash that maybe he is coming to fix something that Noach left crooked. Of course, you'll hear a lot of stories of Gilgulim, Gilgul Neshamos in Hasidic lore. And here's one that I personally am partial to. It's a Hasidic story, and it packs a punch. And it's like this. Poor man approached the Baal Shem Tov. He was suffering greatly, and he was at a loss, like our hapless Iyov, in how to, what to make of it. What did I do? And the Baal Shem Tov gave him a very specific set of instructions. He said, I'd like you to go to a distant town and track down this man. He gave him a name, very specific identification. And he said, you go find him and he may be able to help you identify your problem. So he followed the advice of the Baal Shem Tov, makes a journey, comes to the town and approaches somebody and asks for directions. And the person immediately spits when he hears the name, curses, and walks away. And our hero is a little bit dumbstruck. He doesn't know exactly what to make of this treatment, asks another person and another person, as in Hasidic stories, these things tend to go in threes. And finally is pointed, again, with utter disgust, but the person at least points him to a house. Well, he knocks on the door. The person answers the door. He asks for the name. The door is slammed in his face. He knocks again, and he said, wait. And he said, just tell me, why are people so negative about the person? And he said, oh, well, that person that miser, that nasty, stingy, wealthy, and utterly self-absorbed individual. He died long ago, but we all despise him as much as today, as much as we did back in the day. And he slams the door in the face. And the man travels back to the Baal Shem Tov, and he says, Rebbe, what was that exercise all about? And the Baal Shem Tov looks him square in the eyes and says, that man was you. And the man is, of course, shaken to the core. He realizes he's poor, and that's his great source of suffering, and that it's a punishment from Hashem from his previous life of stinginess. He starts with whatever little bit of money he still can scrape together. He starts giving whatever he has to tzedakah, and eventually he makes a living. He's able to grow extensively in his wealth, and he gives much of it to the poor and the needy, and they all live happily ever after. Okay, so the story is true, it's not true, is besides the point. It illustrates the nature of Gilgul beautifully. There are, we mentioned these last night, a lot of interesting questions. I'm not an authority, I'm not going to field them, but a lot of questions are raised by Gilgul. We indicated, which body will come back in the final resurrection. How many chances is the soul given, in fact, to get to a state of completion, as it were? There's no yeush, there's no giving up when it comes to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Is it infinite? Or perhaps we reach is there a red line and we can't really go after a certain point? There is some discussion in the Zohar that indicates that even a little progress that's made each time is worth it, even if we don't really totally fix the problems of the past. This is, of course, one of the ways the Mekubalim approach our topic of theodicy, of why people suffer, and sometimes in ways that are inexplicable. They don't seem to correlate with whatever problems that they have, and that's Iyov's problem, certainly. In another great Kabbalistic work that's actually predates the Zohar, Sefer Abahir, that's attributed to Rabbi Nechuni ben Akana, he gives a mashal, he gives a metaphor. He says it's like a person who plants a vineyard, trying to tend to the grapes, but the first batch are sour. So he tears it out, cleans everything up, and starts all over again. And he continues this process until he gets it right. Now, obviously, Hashem doesn't have imperfections. The imperfections are purely ours. But that's the straightforward metaphor. It's a little tricky, of course, because we're basically oriented around tshuva. We're really trying to fix whatever we can. The mysterious part, of course, is not knowing what did I do wrong. So what you have to do, that's what I said earlier, you have to learn Torah and do your best. Take cues, try to mark correlations that are reasonable, and that's all that Hashem can expect from a person. Thoughts, questions before we resume a little bit more? Go back into Elihu's words, his eloquent words, and his approach to Iyov. Fine, be that way. Long week for everybody. I'm tired. No, okay. Here we go.
I'm just don't have any questions. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, here we go. Take out your Sefer Iyov. We're in the 33rd chapter. And we just saw quite a pasuk. I'll repeat it again. Again, chapter 33, pasuk 29. Without hearing the Ramban, I don't know how else you'd understand this verse. In English, they render it, all this Hashem will do for man, even 2 or 3 times. I mean, it's not true. You could read the simple meaning of the verse. The Pashut Pshat could simply be that within one lifetime, Hashem gives him many chances. But the Ramban is not at all far away from a simple reading when he understands 2 or 3 times altogether, as in lifetimes. Now consider, we talked about that verse yesterday. Consider the next verse. To deflect his soul from the grave, to allow him to bask in life-giving light. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like he's talking about within the same lifetime. This is actually, even though Iyov is going to go on for some time now, he's not done speaking. But as far as the Ramban explains, he says, this concludes Iyov's big revelation in laying bare the mysteries of how Hashem works in this world, and emphasizing this notion of different chances through Gilgul. He says, Ramban finds that this could be a decisive solution to our problem of tzaddik v'ralo. In broad terms, he summarizes that is what Elisha said. He's explained all suffering is justified. We may not understand those justifications, but it all works. The ultimate truth has many facets and eludes us while we're in this world. I mean, in a certain level, I'm just considering the Ramban's words, a certain level, it makes sense that it would elude us because there's so much going on. We perceive this in our daily activities. We're so finite and limited. The world is so infinite. I mean, just it's our cheap metaphor for everything these days, but just consider the coronavirus right now. I mean, we're just totally lost in this world, groping for some kind of way forward into the future. Right? So if this is true, if something that's so prosaic can stump the experts and really all of humanity, certainly the big mysteries of life leave us with our jaw gaping. And what are we supposed to do? Well, Hashem provides us with all the tools, all the resources that we need to face whatever we have to face in life. All the experiences that we go through are ultimately for the best. And so instead of fighting our reality, which is what a lot of people do, we should say, okay, this is all from Hashem. Basic bitachon, basic lesson in faith. Okay, Hashem put this difficult person in my life. He gave me this series of challenges. That's all from Hashem. My job is not to live happily ever after in this world. My job is to rise to the challenge and try to do it as best I can. Somebody showed me, somebody CC'd me a letter with something else in mind, nothing really, something personal. Wife of an Orthodox rabbi, but she needs her hashkafic head screwed on better because she was writing platitudes about coronavirus, and she was talking about sending off her small children to school in wearing masks. And I think her line was, this jarred me when I read it. I jumped a little bit. She writes, seeing these cute little faces wearing these masks, she says, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Well, who's she screaming at? Who's she complaining against? Right? She's screaming in the wind. I mean, if it's wrong on some level, lady, aren't you really complaining to Hashem? I mean, because he did this. And what do you mean by it's wrong? I mean, this is our reality, no? So if we believe in Hashem, we believe in Hashgacha Pratis, Hashem runs the world, I don't know what it is exactly. It may be painful. It's not wrong. But she is just the latest example, and we can brainstorm probably numerous examples in each of our daily lives of people who fight. Oh, Eitan Van made it. Wow, hi Eitan. Are you at the wedding? No. Okay, you look like you're at some kind of hall. Great. Wasn't this year without you. And hi Yitzchak Chaim. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Shalom Aleichem. Thank you so much.
Aleichem Shalom. Yeah. Great to see you. So anyway, I mean, we're hitting on a familiar theme. It's an all-important theme. We can't talk about it enough. It's so out there in the world that it winds up infecting our thinking. It infects our way of thinking. That we fight the reality instead of gracefully handling it. And the Ramban is quite clear that Iyov's message to Iyov is deal with it and deal with it well. And it's that dealing with it itself that will be a test of your real character. And perhaps that's what the Satan had in mind all along. Iyov seems to be saying, even if your own suffering, your predicament may not be explained by Gilul Neshamos. Maybe it was something you did in this life, maybe a past life, who knows. But what the concept it does indicate is that there are so many levels of the way Hashem works in the world, we can't really grasp it. So why are you obsessing, Iyov, over the source of your problem and the seeming unfairness of it all? Turn to chapter 34, pasuk 35. By the way, I'm dominating tonight like I've never have, but that should not preclude anybody's participation. Please be as into this as you want to be, and I love your insights if you have them. Yeah.
Then why do we try to find reasons?
It's Chaim, I didn't hear what you said. Say it again.
If it's beyond our understanding, then why do we try to find reasons?
Oh, so you came in right after I addressed that. So, oh, great! I'm doing my job. I'm not only teaching but providing guilt trips again. It's one of the things they ask you in job interviews. How quickly can you ease in guilt trips? What we had said was that we should try, and we should try to make logical connections. Certainly, anything that could prompt us to make tshuva, great. I mean, in the worst scenario, we were totally off base, and we made tshuva anyway.
But why? Why look for the reason though?
Well, because sometimes we can find them.
Fine.
And then, amazing, right? And wouldn't it be worth it even if we're totally off base? Okay, look in chapter 34 if you can, if you have a Sefer Iyov, and Eitan usually has provided us with the area should you need it. Pasuk 35. Iyov, and again, here's the Leo addressing him by name. That's how humanizing. Iyov does not speak wisely. His points are not made with intelligence. Don't know if they knew how to do this. Am I doing this correctly? Something like this, right? I mean, well, that kind of cuts to the core. Almost sounds like Rabbi putting down a student. Anyway, what is this? Iyov. Lo v'das yidaber udvarav lo yisak. That's a great line. I'm going to use it on somebody one day. So what is Elihu trying to express here? His points were not made intelligently. Fine. Here's what the Gemara in Baba Basra has to say. By the way, I don't know if you have this attitude. I'm introducing all kinds of material here. I'm quoting Mefarshim. Whenever you hear somebody quoting a Gemara, like Baba Basra in this case, right? You sit up and listen. This means, this is Chazal. This is a high-level interpretation. In this case, it's coming from Rava. Rava understands that this is the source of the idea that we've been referring to a few times, that Iyov, because he speaks unwisely, I mean, Elihu's not scoring points by putting Iyov down. He's actually making the point that Iyov is not to be blamed for what he said, because due to his pain, all of it's really coming out unwittingly, and not much thought is involved. And that's Adam lo nitpas. A person's not caught on the things that he utters in suffering. He is anus. He is. It's almost like he's against his will. There are different kinds of onus. We had a great discussion today in Gemara and Makos, trying to assess what's going on with the Goel Adam. Anybody here who was in Shiur in Makos? We did it 6 years ago. Elio Kabilio's not here tonight. No, Elio wasn't there. No. But you're Aaron Ashita. He would know from this. Anyway, in Makos, the sugi of Goel Adam. We're perplexed by this question of why does the Torah allow for a personality like the Goel Adam, the blood avenger whose family member was just murdered by accident, and now he's allowed under certain very specific circumstances to go kill the murderer? Hatfields and McCoys, vengeance. So we talked about, we gave an analogy to the Eishes Yifas Torah and how the Torah sometimes makes concessions when it comes to a burning, furious Yetzer Hara. And we saw the Emek Davar from the Netziv of Volozhin, that he comments on a series of other parallel experiences, and I want to add Iyov to them, So the connection is really very apt. Where a person may not be held accountable. It talks about a woman who's being abused, molested. And it says, the Gemara says that she is not held accountable, she's not punishable, even if it started ba'onus and ended b'ratzon. Kind of a striking thing. Don't tell the Me Too people I just said this, and I guess it's going up in YouTube. I hope I won't get lynched. But what it says is that sometimes women in that situation might begin it against her will. Somewhere down the line, it might happen that she enjoys it. How do you gauge that? She doesn't scream out when she could have. She doesn't try to protect herself. So she participates. Shouldn't she be chayev if it's an adulterous, for example, event? So then shouldn't she be punished? No, because a person's not blamed when they're in duress. Similarly, I don't know if you know this halacha, the Netziv cites it. Somebody's punched or alternately publicly humiliated. And without thinking, he just hauls back and punches the aggressor right then and there. As long as it's immediate, he's also in the getter of anus. He's not really taken to task. He only has a very short period that he can do that. Once he's cooled down a few seconds, he can't punch back and he can't insult back. But when there's that initial fury, that initial surge of emotion, it's almost like your Yetzer Hara. I mean, the lashon is the Yetzer Hara has clothed you, it's enveloped you, and you're almost not yourself. You've been taken over, and of course the classic example, somebody whose family member has been murdered is in a much longer term sense. It's temporary insanity. He's consumed with a bloodlust. He's got to get the guy. And Iyov has been almost taken over by a demon, but it's a demon of his own making, and it's a demon that's clothed in the Yetzer Hara. And so the Gemara is saying very powerfully, a person's not held, and here we have to catch ourselves, he's not held responsible for what he's saying under those circumstances. But let's say this, he's not held fully responsible. I mean, we're all held responsible for everything, but maybe not completely to task. You hear the concept? It's a very important one. Yeah? Okay. So that's I think very much contained in what was the Gemara in Baba Basra that's commenting on Iyov's words, finishing up, tying up Eliu's statements to Iyov. Okay, is there an echo there? Fine, here we go. The next few chapters, all the way through the end of chapter 37, are Eliu's summing up. He has, in the first few chapters, set the tone so effectively, and we spent some time yesterday describing that, how so much of life is how you approach things. If you can establish the right rapport, if you can tell a mili de b'dichusa, tell a joke at the beginning of a shiur, if you can establish a basic trust and confidentiality in the therapy room as a therapist, any of these kinds of relationships, once you set the tone positively, good things can follow. And he's able to get through to Iyov in a way that, in such stark contrast, all the friends failed. And in chapters 34 to 37, Eliu lays into Iyov. He rebukes him. But Iyov's able to hear it, which is, of course, a textbook lesson on tochacha. Tochacha, which is one of the core ideas, core mitzvahs in the Torah. Tochiach es amisecha. The true definition of a friend, amisecha, your friend, is somebody that you can, in the right way, criticize, rebuke. And he can take it properly as a gift. Because a person can't let himself out of prison. We all have our blind spots. So if you can help them out of their own mess that they make for themselves by giving them very gently, lovingly rendered rebuke. Usually that has to be, there are a lot of criteria. It has to be private. It has to be clear that you are doing it for their benefit and not for some kind of self-gain, certainly not to score points. And if all of the criteria are there and you've assessed the situation, you really do feel sincerely that the person can hear it, Today we have a difficulty with the rebuke, famously because most people can't hear it and won't hear it. But if you can do this, so it's a key point, and Eliyahu shows the way. Throughout this, he is calm. You can hear it in the tone of voice in the psukim. He remains objective. He never sinks to the level of diatribe. The most striking contrast is that's with the 25th chapter with Eliphaz, who's everything that Elihu's not. And then he finishes. End of 37. Turn to the end of 37. Or you let me do it for you. Okay. And we hear the last from Eliyahu. As for Shakai, as for Hashem, and it's the same reference to the aspect of Hashem that provides everything we need. Eliyahu concludes, we have not found his force beyond tolerance. There is due measure. There's much charity. He does not torment. Describing Hashem's basic ways, right? He's beyond us. Everything is done very deliberately, in a very measured way. The amount of chesed he does is beyond words. He never torments us. That's another one that we want to stick on here. Lo ya'ane, inui nefesh. Hashem never torments us. I think also in the world today, there's a widespread perception that Hashem torments us. Anybody get that? Where you hear people speaking about their lives and their plights. Why does Hashem do this to me? So Eliyahu is saying very calmly and very assertively, very firmly, no, wrong. You have the wrong concept. Therefore, he concludes, men stand in awe of him, of Hashem. And as for him, Hashem, he does not even glance upon the wise. So that's a bit of an elusive last point. Yeah. Okay. He's just set the stage now for the last figure to come in. And as we've been waiting for this. As I've been mentioning, it's Hashem appearing in a way that we don't encounter him in the Bible. Hashem does confront people, and he appears and talks to people. He's rendered in human terms, all not to be taken at face value, because Hashem is not in time or space, and he's not subject to any limitations. Dibra Torah Koloshim B'nei Adam. Those are operative words in understanding the rest of the book of Iyov. The Torah speaks in terms that people can comprehend, so that we can at least get some concept. But we're not meant to understand anything actually literal here. Hashem appears, and it's dramatic, it's operatic. Turn to chapter 38, and again, I encourage you to really do this inside. If you have commentary, you can please enrich the discussion too. Chapter 1. Let's just read inside and see what's said, even though there's going to be a lot more than we will be able to tap into here. Then Hashem responded to I've said this caveat. A couple of you are new here. This is a book that you're going to come back to. I hope, I bless you, that we all should come back to it at different intervals in our lives when we're much wiser than we are right now, and it'll start taking on whole new meanings. We're only scratching the surface. 38 verse 1. Then Hashem responded to Iyov from out of the whirlwind, saying, "Who is this who has such murky ideas, speaking without due consideration? Come, gird your loins like a warrior. I will put questions to you, and you will enlighten me." Where were you, Hashem proposes? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, please, if you are so wise, who determines its dimensions? Would you know? Or who measured it with a line? Where are its sockets sunk? And who set its cornerstone? When all the morning stars sang in unison, right? When do all the angels shout? when was the sea dammed up behind doors as it flows, as its flow issues forth from the womb? When I clothed it in clouds and swaddled it in its midst, I hemmed it in by moats, providing bolts and gates. Say for Iyov, the last thing it needs is Bleiweiss's approbation, but you're thunderstruck by the poetic beauty of just really what comes out to be a description of Maisa Bereshis, and the awesome, is a proper use of the term, the awesome nature of the universe, something that in our own daily lives we go through with such banality, with such routine, that we neglect to see what a mind-boggling world it is out there, and in here, in our minds, in every dimension. And take a look and say for Iyov, to pull yourself out of your shallowness, out of all of our petty considerations, to see the grandeur. And Hashem himself is giving us a tour of his own creation. Verse 10, verse 11. Again, well, I'll go back to 10 because it's a continuation. I hemmed it in the sea by moats, providing bolts and gates, saying, up to here you shall come and no further. Only here will your crests flaunt their majesty. Talking about waves in the sea. They rise up, they come down, all beautifully calibrated by a master designer. He asks, have you ever ordered up the morning, told the dawn its place, that it might take hold of the corners of the earth, so that the wicked might be shaken from it? It changes radically, as does clay exposed to the seal. They stand revealed as through a garment. This way the wicked will have their light withheld, and the power of the haughty will be smashed. Who can really look at the wonder of creation and feel big about himself? Maybe people who hike up Masada at sunrise and revert what should be a sublime experience into a banal photo op. Here, everybody, let's pose. We'll do selfies. Right? You take the modern shallow mentality completely punches the universe in the gut, lets all the air out of it, and we don't see the godless, the grandeur of creation. I wasn't planning on doing this so long. Is anybody into this? Just the reading of the verses in English? The Hebrew's better, but it'll go over most of our heads. Should we do a little bit more? I mean, just again, allow yourself, close your eyes and just picture this. If you can wade through the Art Scrolls thesaurus here, and manage their probably overly big words, but the images are sublime, are just magical.
Rabbi, what does sublime mean?
Transcendent, beyond our world, lifting your mind to, I know, I'm guilty as charged, sorry about that. Here we go. Okay. 16. Hashem asks Iyov still, have you penetrated to the inaccessible abysses to the sea? Well, is it, what's it called now? It's not National Geographic anymore, it's Google Planet? No? Something?
Google Earth.
Help me. I'm so hopelessly out of date. Google Planet does this. Doesn't Google Earth? Thank you. Google Earth doesn't. Don't they go down to the bottom of the sea?
No.
Oh.
I don't know. I think so. I think it's no. In some places they do.
Okay. Well, again, if you do that, or if you go on any of these wondrous journeys through through space or through the ocean, and then you render it in the banal terms of a scientist, right? You're completely, knocking the wind out of its sails. I heard this description of Carl Sagan, who's a lapsed Jew. Sagan, obviously, Sagan usually means it's another term for a Levi, an assistant Levi. So Carl Sagan writes these big books about astronomy, and his book called The Cosmos. He effectively describes what is a completely mystifying, wondrous universe. And I mean, lahavdil, he's no Moshe Rabbeinu, and his book is no Iyov, but you come through also thunderstruck by the grandeur of it all, and then of course he has to come to the scientific conclusion that it's all one beautiful accident. 17. Are the gates of death familiar to you? Gulp. Are you able to look upon the portals leading to the dread shadows? Have you considered the wide expanses of the earth? Tell me, pray, if you know it all. Where's the road that leads to the light's abode? And as regards to the darkness, where's its place? Could you take it to its boundary? This is posing the question, could you follow the end of the universe to its final boundary? And do you really think that you know the paths that lead to its house? Did you know all this? Then surely you were born even then, and surely the years of your life must be many. Did you ever penetrate to the vaults where the snow is kept? Have you seen into the repositories of the hail, which I withheld in anticipation of a day of trouble, for a day when battle is to be joined? Which paths lead to the point at which the light is refracted, where the sunlight diffuses upon the earth? It goes on, it's continuous. I think you should do it on your own. You're missing out if you don't. Let me make a couple of comments before we wind down for the week. Anybody want to contribute or ask? Okay.
Yeah, which form does God take? I'm still kind of confused as to that.
You and I are together in this. I told you everything I know about Hashem in the whirlwind. Again, he appears in a whirlwind. That's all it says. Kind of mysterious, huh? I guess that's the point. The medium is the message, right? Hashem is saying, you don't get it. You won't get it. Don't try to look at me. It's operatic, but you can't convert this to an opera because there are no visuals. So notice in everything that we read, and then it continues like this for some time, Hashem never mentions anything that's happened earlier. He doesn't, I mean, at least not the initial, he'll mention Iyov and his friends, but he doesn't talk about the narrative part of the book. He doesn't talk about the heavenly tribunal that he, remember at the very, very beginning when he calls Satan, the angels from the Satan come, look at my servant Iyov. None of this is mentioned. He doesn't comment on Iyov's suffering, not a word. It's none of your business, Iyov, meaning sometimes you learn a lot in what's not said. He doesn't say anything about this because he doesn't have to answer for himself. Right? People often want to bring Hashem to task. Right? Okay, you try that. You try to see what the answer you get. He's not, we remember this line in the Gemara Megillah, Chavrusa klape shmaya. What are you? Hashem's chavrusa is your peer. He has to answer to you. Rambam, not Ramban, now for a change. Rambam, in a different source, Yesodei HaTorah, his great book about the foundations of the Torah and the world. Rambam says, how do we attain love and fear of Hashem? He says, when man considers the acts of Hashem and his wondrous creations that are beyond our knowledge. That's what David meant when he wrote in Sefer Tehillim, Sama nafshi lelokim lekel chai, says the Rambam. My soul thirsts for the living God. I want to come close, even though I don't really understand and can't ever understand, not in this world. Elihu certainly has set this groundwork. He's made a similar point, and Hashem is now confirming the truths of Elihu's speeches. They're very much, all the Mefarshim, all the commentators understand them to be very much espousing a similar message. Now, Iyov, for his part, is no Avram Avinu. I don't know if you remember the very, very beginning. there were certain reasons to compare him with Avram, but he is not a chacham like Avram Avinu. He's not a balamuna. Nor does his tmimus come close to Avram's tmimus, his purity of emuna. Iyov, and the little we see him as a parent, doesn't come off as the father of the month. Doesn't seem to be so connected to his kids at all. And Iyov speaks with quite a lot of chutzpah. For all of that, one thing we can say about Iyov, he's an honest guy. He keeps his yashrus. He says it like he believes it, even when he's kind of wallowing in an incoherent kind of a babble. But okay, that's where he's holding, and that's what he says. And it seems that he's decent enough on kind of a core level that Hashem sees him worthy to speak to, even if he's harsh. It's a great lesson here. It is one of the more quotable statements. That's why I say it all the time. Remember the Kutzker Rebbe? Where's Hashem found?
We let him in.
Right? Since Iyov, through all of his suffering, was always very much present and with Hashem, Hashem's there for him. It's a powerful message because, remember, Iyov is understood as every man. We're all Iyov, right? So if you want a relationship with Hashem, in this regard, Hashem, as it were, comes to you in a whirlwind, and he gives him his full audience, whatever that actually means. And you're still trying to conceptualize it. I don't think we're meant to. He says again. I'll repeat it. Near the beginning, we quoted, I'll say it in Hebrew now. Eifo hayisa, where were you? Biyazdi aretz, when I founded the world. Hagedim yadata vina, tell me if you understand wisdom. That's the first of the series of rhetorical questions. The answer's implied, not given. Later in this chapter that we've just been reading, we didn't quite get to it. If you turn the page one page, verse 36, one of the rhetorical questions he asks is a famous one. Who gave the kidneys wisdom? That's one choice of translation. You could say that word in different ways. Who imbued the heart with understanding? Do you know how to say that in Hebrew? You can cheat and look at it. It's the basis of a bracha, we say. Either you have lousy Hebrew, or you're not looking at Sefer Iyov. Anybody? Okay, I'll say it. But
what's the question again, Rabbi? Can you repeat it?
Yeah. What's the translation? What does the pasuk say? And what is the famous line that comes out of this verse? Again, he asks him in verse 36. Chapter 38, he asks, who gave the kidneys wisdom, who imbued the heart with understanding? In Lashon HaKodesh, that comes out as Mishas Pituchos Chochma, fine, Omi Nasan Lesechvi Vina. What's that connected to?
Isn't that one of the blessings in Birkat
Shachar? Right. Who gives the English translation here, they say the heart is imbued with understanding. Do you ever sometimes marvel at our own capacity for insight, intelligent thought? What a small-minded person without much faith concludes when he considers his intellect is just how wonderful he is. But a person of the Spirit understands that if I'm wonderful, I didn't do that. That's purely from Hashem. Mina san l'sechvi, Hanosin, right? Hashem is the source. He gave the sechvi vina. He gave us wisdom. All that's good, all that's virtuous in us has a source. We will, as Rosh Hashem, continue from here, trying to probe a little bit more what Hashem is telling us. We have some guidance, more guidance from the Gemara and Baba Basra, and where I'm heading down the road after we conclude the book, we're going to have to spend a little bit of time at least in considering the deeper messages and what we're supposed to do with them and apply them to our lives. And there's a lot of good stuff coming. I'm cribbing from a lot of different shiurim here. I have a little bit of a Breitowitz coming. I have a lot of pieces that I've been collecting over the years. So everything you always want to know about suffering and reward and punishment and we're afraid to ask. But anybody has questions or thoughts right now?
Yeah, I have a thought.
Fantastic.
So you say God is not, like, no one's a chavrusa of God and God doesn't have to answer anyone, but he comes and answers someone.
Right? That's his choice. That's his prerogative. We can't make that demand. And notice, really, he's coming and he is there for Iyov. He's hardly answering him. He's not addressing the many challenges. And Iyov, remember that Iyov has one wowzer of a chutzpah bordering on heresy. He says, let's go to Beis Din, Hashem. Hashem doesn't deal with that. Doesn't even go there.
Why does he have to answer at all? Why does he have to come down at all?
He doesn't. I think one thing you could interpret is in his infinite greatness and in his compassion for us, despite all of our unworthiness and despite all of our chutzpah, he's still available to us on a personal and certainly on a collective basis.
Interesting.
Yeah. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Next week should be good. I don't think there's any conflict. We'll try to go as long as we have. If anybody has a request or specific ideas for topics, you'll please communicate them. And otherwise, I have very good Shabbos. And and good Chodesh too. That's coming too. Stop. Wait. Don't sign off. If you haven't had a chance to say it yet and you don't remember to say it, don't forget. There is the famous tefillah of the Shla. You can find it online anywhere. It's said on Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan annually. This year, because that's on an Erev Shabbos, the tradition is to say it on Thursday. By most of you, it's still Thursday. It's still Erev Shabbos, Erev Rosh Chodesh, and it's great to say it's a tefillah for children, not just for children, but for really great children. And this is our opportunity.
Where can I find that?
Can you repeat? Thank you so much.
Let me know where you can find it. It's look at the tefillah. Put in Google tefillah of the Shla children. It's got to come up.
Oh, the Shah children.
Shla Kadosh.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Wow.
Yeah, great to see you. Bye.
I'm Bleiweiss.
I'm not going away.
You said you had a Zoom channel.
This is it.
No, meaning like what do you mean when you say you have a Zoom channel? Like meaning like Mamish, like when we can access your Shiur, like what do you mean?
Oh, I don't know what I mean. I hope I didn't mislead. I'm just saying this is my address. When I come on and I give shiurim or I talk to people, this is where I do it on this. What did you have in mind?
Oh no, I just thought you Shiurim were on that channel, but no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can find other ways to get them.
Yeah. Anytime you hear me say something that sounds technologically sophisticated, you're making a mistake.
They are on YouTube, Brian. Eitan put all the Iyov shiurim on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Can I ask a random question, Rabbi?
Yeah, great. Please do.
Hey, you just did.
Bunch.
Ari makes a good point.
Yes, may you ask a random question?
I have a bunch. Obviously, I'm just gonna ask one because I have mincha soon. But I heard a claim that all/most of knowledge in the world descends from Jew/the Torah. Is there any credence to this statement?
I think it's on YouTube. Earlier this year, I gave an alumni shiur like this on Herschel Lutch's channel, and two parts that does indirectly get to this because I take on a classic Kiruv piece called World Perfect that several people give versions of it. Ken Spiro does the well-known piece from Ancient Torah, and I have my own take on it. But the gist of the piece deals exactly with your question of the hypothesis is that most of the universal values, he identifies 6, that the world today considers basic human values. In point of fact, were not historically universal values. They're relatively new in the world as universal values, and that most of them can be traced to Torah.
Yeah, but
right to life, the right to social justice, and the like. These things that really the Jews and later, obviously, their spin-offs, the Christians and the rest would give the world, and now they become such a part of our collective consciousness. We take them for granted. But many of the ideas really originate in the Torah, and as believing Jews, so we understand that would be natural. That would follow
Yeah.
very logically. Of course,
Yeah,
they
so-
misunderstand a whole bunch of stuff too. So I can't say we can't, take too much credit because they also mess up a lot of the details. But many of the arguments are profound and really and stimulating, worth looking at. If you want, I can send you also. If you want to see my notes on the subject, I can send them to you.
Yeah, so that I would agree with, the value aspect of it, but my question is more focused on like actual knowledge. Like, is there any credence to that?
What do you mean, like that all the world's knowledge is all based on the Torah?
It's part of maybe descends from. I heard a claim
I don't know.
like that.
I don't know. We're getting in the realm of conspiracy theory, maybe. Yeah, I mean, again, all greatness is Hashem. We just said that in the pasuk, right? Hashem nasan l'sech vivina, lavchim ben yom uvein laila, right? And as we have basic knowledge and insight from Hashem. So, on that level, for sure. We tend to take credit for lots of things that, I don't know, maybe other people came up with some ideas, but nothing's original.
I got you.
Yeah. Great. Well, signing off. So, Eden, thank you. You recorded this. You'll send it off to Eitan Van?
To Eitan, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. A very nice Erev Shabbos and good Chodesh.
And Yom Yerushalayim for
That
those
too?
of you here.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom. Bye.